In the busy city of Utem, where the streets were alive with the sounds of commerce and the smell of roadside delicacies, there lived a man named Ikenna. Ikenna was a man of stature, a successful businessman whose name carried weight in the circle of power. Ikenna had everything a man could want: a successful communication company, a beautiful home in the upscale neighborhood, and a loving wife, Amaka. Amaka was a woman of grace, a mother who nurtured her 3 daughters named Amanda, Diogo, and Oma with all the love in her heart. Amanda, the eldest child of Amaka and Ikenna, was as sharp as a blade. Her intelligence and ambition setting her apart even at a young age. Diogo, the second child, has a quiet strength with an artist's soul that saw beauty where others saw only the mundane. Oma, the youngest, was full of life, her laughter a melody that brightened their home. Yet, despite all this, Ikenna felt a gnawing emptiness in his heart that refused to be filled. He loved his daughters, but deep down, he wanted a son to carry on his name, to inherit his empire, to be the one who would walk in his footsteps. Ikenna and his wife, Amaka, has tried all medical options, but no positive results. This made Ikenna depressed the more. Ikenna, sitting outside his mansion, thinking with his hands on his jaw, said to himself, "Is this how I will live my life without a son to continue my legacy? What do I do now? And I'm not getting any younger." These are the numerous questions going through Ikenna's mind before Amaka, his wife, came to him and tapped him on the shoulder. "My husband, I know you're worried because of what the doctor said. I have been thinking lately, how about we adopt a son, since I won't be able to give birth for now?" Ikenna angrily retorted, "God forbid! I need a son with my blood that will be like his father. I'm not going to raise another man's child." He said angrily, stood up and went inside. As the years passed, Ikenna's discontent grew. The whispers of friends and relatives fed his anxiety, turning his quest for a baby boy into an obsession. They spoke of the importance of a male heir, of the legacy that could only be passed on from a father to a son. In his mind, his daughters were not enough. They could never be enough. Amaka sensed the change in him. She saw how he became distant, how his eyes would darken whenever he saw a friend playing with his son. She prayed for another child, hoping that God would bless him with a baby boy. But her prayers went unanswered. Each month that passed, with no sign of pregnancy, Ikenna's frustration grew. Please remember to subscribe to my channel, turn on your notification button, give a like and comment on my video. Thank you. It was during one of these dark periods that Ikenna met a lady called Ngozi. Ngozi was the kind of woman who commanded attention. Her beauty was striking, her presence magnetic. She was a recent arrival on Utem, a woman of mysterious origins, with a business sense that can compete with Chinedu's. They met at a business conference, and from the moment their eyes locked, something ignited within him. Ngozi was everything Amaka was not. She was bold, confident, and unafraid to challenge Ikenna. She flirted with Ikenna without fear, and Ikenna found himself drawn to her like a moth to a flame. Their affair began innocently, with enough business meetings that ran late, dinners that turned into long conversations about lives and dreams. But soon, those conversations turned into something more forbidding. Ngozi knew of Ikenna's longing for a son, and she played on it. "A man like you deserves a heir to continue his legacy," she would say, her voice smooth as silk. "A son to take over your empire. What will happen to all that you have built if there is no one to carry it forward?" Her words sank into his mind, twisting his thoughts until he could see no other options. Amaka and her daughters became invisible to him, and mere shadows in the bright light that was Ngozi. The idea of leaving them, of starting a new life with Ngozi, with a promise of a son, consumed Ikenna. One evening, after a particular heated argument with Amaka about his late nights and distance, Ikenna made his decision. Ikenna packed his bags, left a note on the dining table, and walked out of the life he had built. He abandoned his wife and daughters without a second thought, convinced that he was doing what he had to do. Ikenna moved in with Ngozi, and within a year, she became pregnant. The news of the pregnancy brought Ikenna undeniable joy. He was certain that this was the son he had always wanted, the heir to his empire. As months passed in anticipation and excitement, when Ngozi finally gave birth, it was indeed a boy. They named him Obinna, meaning father's heart. Ikenna was overjoyed. His dreams finally realized. He showered Obinna with all the love and attention that he had withheld from his daughters, convinced that his decision to leave them has been the right one all along. Obinna grew up in luxury. His every need and desire was met. Ikenna taught him the ways of business, preparing him to take over the company one day. He was proud of his son, blind to any faults, convinced that Obinna was his true legacy. But as the years passed, little cracks began to appear. Obinna was not the ambitious, driven son that Ikenna has envisioned. He was lazy, spoiled, and uninterested in the world of business. He spent days indulging in the pleasures that wealth could afford, with no regard for future. Ikenna dismissed these signs at first, believing that his son would eventually mature. But as Obinna grew older, his behavior only worsened. He squandered his father's money, got involved with the clique of friends that smokes and harass women. This became a source of constant trouble. The more Ikenna tried to caution him, the more Obinna rebelled. Meanwhile, Ikenna's business began to suffer. With his focus entirely on Obinna, he neglected his company. The empire he had built with his own hands began to crumble. The foundation weakened by years of mismanagement and neglect. While Ikenna's life was becoming out of control, his daughters were flourishing. Amanda had become a renowned lawyer, known for her sharp mind and unyielding integrity. She had taken the legal world by storm. representing high-profile clients and winning cases that others deemed unwinnable. Her name was spoken with respect and admiration. Diogo had followed her passion for art, becoming a celebrated painter. Her works were displayed in galleries across the world. Her unique style capturing the essence of African beauty and resilience. She had turned her quiet strength into a voice that resonated through her paintings, inspiring countless others. Oma, the youngest, had channeled her energy into entrepreneurship. She started her own tech company, creating innovative solutions that addressed the needs of the global market. Her company grew rapidly, attracting investors and clients from all around the globe. She was a force to be contended with, her laughter now a symbol of her unbreakable spirit. The three sisters had built their own empires, each in their own way, without the need of their father's name or approval. They had become the success stories that Ikenna has always wanted. Only they had done it on their own terms, without their father's help. One day, the sisters received word that their father's company is in trouble. It had become common knowledge in Utem that Ikenna's business was on the brink of collapse, and that his son Obinna was the cause. Despite the pain he had caused them, the sisters decided to confront him, not out of pity, but to show him the strength of the daughters he had abandoned. When Ikenna saw his daughters again after so many years, he was taken aback by how much they had grown, how much they had achieved. They were no longer the little girls he had left behind. They were powerful women, each a testament to the strength and determination of their mother Amaka. Amaka spoke first on arrival to her father's place. Her voice steady and cold. "Father, you left us because you wanted a son. You thought we were not enough to carry on your legacy. But look at us now. We have built our own legacies without your help." Diogo stepped forward, her eyes filled with the fire of her passion. "You abandoned us, but we did not let that define us. We used the pain you caused to fuel our dreams, to become something greater than you ever imagined." Oma, the youngest, looked at him with a mixture of sadness and pity. "You chose him over us," she said, nodding towards Obinna, who stood behind Ikenna, his eyes full of disdain. "But he was never your legacy. We were," she continued. Ikenna, broken and humbled by their words, could not speak. He looked at Obinna, who had been silent throughout the confrontation. In that moment, the truth that Ikenna had long refused to see came crashing down on him. Ngozi, who had been watching from the shadows, stepped forward. Her face was etched with guilt. "Ikenna," she said softly, "there's something I need to tell you. Obinna is not your son." The room fell silent. Ikenna felt the ground shifted beneath him. The weight of her words were suffocating him. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "He was never yours. Ngozi admitted, tears streaming down her face. I was already pregnant when we met. I didn't tell you because I knew how much you wanted a son. I thought that maybe in time it wouldn't matter. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. Ikenna felt the world collapse around him. The son he had abandoned his family for, the boy he had poured all his hopes and dreams into, was not his. He had thrown away everything, his wife, his daughters, his company, for a lie. Ikenna's life unraveled quickly after the revelation. His business, already on the brink, collapsed completely. The wealth vanished. His status and reputation in utem destroyed. Obinna, the boy he had tried so hard to mold into his hair, left him without a second thought, disappearing into the city's underworld, where he continued his life of indulgence and crime. Ngozi, consumed by guilt and regret, left Ikenna as well. She returned to her hometown, leaving Ikenna alone in the empty shell of the life they had built together. As for Ikenna, he found himself living in a small apartment in a run-down part of the town, far from the luxury he had once known. He was a shadow of his former self, a man who had lost everything because of his own pride and foolishness. But there was one thing he had not lost: his daughters. Despite everything, they had not turned their backs on him completely. They visited him occasionally, not out of obligation, but because of the strength of the bond that their mother had instilled in them. Ikenna had been humbled by life, by the consequences of his choice. He no longer saw himself as the powerful man he once was. Instead, he was simply a father, a flawed, broken father, who had been given a second chance to see the true value of the children he had abandoned. Amaka, on the other hand, lived a fulfilled life, but at the end, Ikenna came begging for forgiveness, and she accepted him with an open arms. In the end, Ikenna learned that a legacy is not about the name you leave behind, but the lives you touch, the love you give, and the strength you pass on the next generation. His daughters, Amanda, Diogo, and Oma, were his true legacy, one that no son could have ever replaced. Thank you for staying tuned till the very end. Trust you enjoyed the story. Please share with me in the comment section what lessons you have learned from this story. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel at African Storytales by Abby. Share with family and friends and loved ones, and stay tuned for more interesting and intriguing stories coming your way. I remain your favorite storyteller, African Stories by Abby. Bye.